Michele and I both have spent our entire lives in the restaurant business.
Until recently.
Yeah, until recently. We still dabble.
Yeah.
But, when Dean was talking about things that you love but don't love you back, Michele and I immediately were like, you mean like our families?
Ouch, he's got real fast.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that it's really kind of, I think it's a salient point when we're talking about the restaurant business, right? We both started incredibly young. My first job in the restaurant business, I was 10. You were 11 or 12?
I was 11 with my paper route, and that is a real job, but 12 before I was actually in a restaurant or something like that. Because we did come from, I know, I'm a slacker. We did come from, when Jason and I met, and what this has continued, the love thing is that I couldn't believe we had never met before, right? My weird boyfriend at the time is texting me because I'm in a job interview with Jason, that's how we met. And he's like, what is happening? His wife is like, what's going on? Because we just clicked.
So job interview lasted like 2.5, 3 hours.
Yes. And it was, aren't we supposed to have dinner? But anyway, for us, we both come from families that didn't exactly nurture, and I'm being kind, you may, but the restaurant business is very much about found family, right? And for us, I think it was really about putting all of everything that we loved into this endeavor.
And I think that for the most part, found family in a way that we're looking for this family that is accepting of us, right? Anybody who's in the restaurant business for a while. But like most families, it's pretty dysfunctional as well. One of the things that sort of towards the end of our owning restaurants in town that was really, really, really front of mind for both of us was, we as an industry are the sort of island of misfit toys everybody likes to talk about, and it's true. But unfortunately, we don't always take care of these toys, It's a safe place for them to land, kind of, and then we create environments that allow predilections for substance use disorder, for all sorts of sundry mental health disorders to flourish, as well as for the individual to flourish. So we were really conscious of that, and I think that that's sort of around the time that, I know for me, I don't want to speak for both of us, that started really having to rethink what in the hell I was doing with my life.
Well, I will say, so for me, I grew up, my dad's an alcoholic, a life ruiner, but we made peace, we're good. Well, he is dead now, but we were good, and we still are good, as far as I'm concerned. But so I was just the weirdo in the restaurant industry because I don't drink. And so I was always trying to be kind about it, but maybe you don't need that third drink to people. And so, before I became partners with Jason and when I was waiting tables and things, and do you remember the time cards that you would clock in, and I would be at working someplace and somebody would, right, narc one time. Pollyanna, that was the kindest one. I was fine with that. And I was honestly fine with narc, And I was like, and I said to the woman who did it continually, I was like, remind me, does drunk have 1K or 2? Because that's what I'm going to write on your time card next. And then I was like, no, that was unkind. But so I always tried to come from a place of kindness, but it's not easy to be the only person who's not drinking in a room. Now the restaurant industry, just in the last, I would say 5 years, has really embraced sobriety, and is really, I think if anything good came out of COVID, it was that restaurant workers are people too. I always get a kick out of it at Thanksgiving. I think I was telling this to Sue Kindred, who's back there, that everyone gets so up in arms because they don't want the Walmart workers to work, and I don't want the Walmart workers to work, but nobody gave a hoot if I was going to serve them turkey. They would be angry, in fact, if I wasn't, right? So I feel like if nothing good came out of COVID, that this idea that restaurant workers are people too, that we have jobs, we have lives. I owned, 4 restaurants at one point in time, and my dad and other people would still ask me when I was going to get a real job. So,
every time I saw her dad, he would thank me for giving her a job. I'm like, she's my partner, Bob.
Again.
My partner.
Crazy.
But the things. So interestingly, Michelle and I both were just talking about this yesterday. That the thing that we probably miss the most, actually, for me, the only thing I miss about the restaurant business, and I hate to sound callous, but 35 years in and owning for 20, it's enough. We use our platform a lot. We did a lot of advocacy work. We did a lot of fundraising, a lot of charity events, a lot of really good works. And I kind of miss that. But then I reflect on where we are now. Michelle and I both are in the public sector. She is executive director of a nonprofit. I'm working for the city as a policy advisor and really doing a lot of advocacy work around. I'm also in recovery finally, 7 years in January, knock on wood. So doing a lot of advocacy work around that. I mean, multiple boards. So we took our love of our community that for a long time we showed through food and through service and through hospitality, that morphed into more sort of like charitable and advocacy good works, into where we are now, which is not restaurants.
We do still have a consulting company.
We do.
And one of the first things that we ask anyone who contacts us is, do you love it, right? Is this why the only reason to go into the restaurant business, unless you have a large fortune and you want to turn it into a small fortune? The only reason is if you really love it. And we did love it. And it loved us back until it didn't, right? We always say that we got everything out of owning restaurants except for fortune, right? We have dined with so many wonderful people. It's just amazing the people that we have met and the lives that we were able to build. And I wouldn't have this job.
And
you wouldn't have this job.
Right.
But the margins are so small. And there's so many restaurants now, Someone pointed out to me a couple of years ago, and I thought this was very funny, that when the 80s, we'll say, when a restaurant closed, another restaurant would open in its place, and that's who your competition was, restaurants that were already. Now, Richmond is a great example. The old dirty bookstore is a restaurant, right? Everything's a restaurant. So there's so many restaurants. We loved it. We still love it from afar, right?
So, it's like, I can say this 1,000 times and it would still be true. I don't miss the restaurant business one iota, but restaurant people are still my people. You don't spend literally 35 years in an industry like this. And I mean, I'm a lifer, period. I'm just old and have big kids and little kids with the same wife, strangely. And so I'm tired, man, and I want to see my little guys that I didn't get to see the bigs the same way that I get to see the littles. And there are things I wouldn't change at all. But one of the ways that I still sort of maintain my love for the restaurant business, and more so its people, I chair a recovery support group called Ben's Friends. That's specifically for people in the food and beverage industry, or like me, found their people in the food and beverage industry, and then maybe are doing something else. And it's incredible. I get to see a lot of people coming in, much younger than I was when I came into the rooms, that's for sure. Navigating this sort of lovely yet perilous existence in the restaurant world and trying to do it in a different way with a different relationships to substances. So
trying to get sober when the whole bar is at your disposal is really hard.
Yeah.
And when you love the work.
Especially when you own all the booze and you really love the booze, and then all of a sudden you never stop drinking the booze until you have to stop.
I would always say to our bartenders, to anyone who worked for us, and that included Jason, don't offer them the second drink. If they want it, they'll ask for it. We don't need to help them along, right?
Not guests. That's just always offer the guests a second drink.
Yeah, the guests. But for people that work for us, don't let them decide, right? And they always will. And so for me, I'm working at Positive Vibe Foundation, which historically has trained young people with disabilities in restaurant work. And so I applied for this job thinking that they still had a restaurant. And we've done so much work with Feed More. Foster care has always been my passion to, as we talked about when we grow up, food insecure, homeless. That foster care was a big thing for me. And so Positive Vibe, I was like, well, this is something I can sort of, it's not foster care, but it's kids, and my best friend's son has autism, and I've watched her struggle. I'll try to apply for this job. And the first thing that they say to me is, we don't have the restaurant anymore. And I was like, huh, I did not know that. Let's keep going. Let's see what happens. And miraculously, I got the job. And also, weirdly, we're now sort of moving out of restaurants. We're giving more students the opportunity to have an overview of restaurant, retail, see what it's like. Some of these students will never have a job, right? But isn't it amazing to be able to let them have the interview process, and we'll find volunteer opportunities, and we want to go forward and build community and camaraderie, and work is so important, but what's really important is community and purpose, and that is something that we both took from the restaurant business.
Absolutely.
And because restaurant business is all about community, and I feel like the purpose of getting up in the morning, having something to do, finding something for these kids to do. So if anybody has jobs that they're looking for kids, let me know. But yeah, so it's been weird, but I think we both sort of love it where we are now.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't mind not getting the calls when the alarm goes off.
I haven't watched a grease trap overflow in almost 4 years.
I have plunged a lot less toilets because I always think it's so funny when people are like, oh, the restaurant business, like ring-a-ding-ding, you must be. I'm like, I bust tables, man, right? Like, and they're like, oh, and you have all these employees, how easy. I'm like, if you think that the employees work for me and not vice versa, it's wrong, because I have to make this a place that they want to come, right? And I was talking to David, I was mentioning this, and Dan, about how it's so important to create a place that people really want to be. And so even when we were interviewing, dishwashers, they're the backbone of any restaurant, and that's it. But anyone we interviewed, I would always say, at my interview, that it's got to be about more than money for you, right? I need you to buy into what we are selling, and what we're selling is community, support of people who have less than we do, all these things. And for the most part, I don't have like 28-year people that worked for us, but in the restaurant industry, which is like dog years, most of our people stayed 7-8 years.
We had one that stayed with us to the end. Sergio was with me for
14 years, 15. And so for us, and that's what you're looking for. I always say this to people when we talk about it with people, anybody or somebody who is talking to us about consulting. All you're selling now is service, right? Rebecca could pull her phone out right now and order a pizza delivered here to Common House, and it's amazing, right? So to get people 2 pizzas, whatever she wants.
No, I think
sushi,
anything.
anything. But so all you're selling in the restaurant business anymore, or retail really, is service, right? So you're selling the friendliness, all of that. So you want people to come in, because in restaurants, it's that second drink that pays the bills, right?
And the appetizers.
Appetizers. So if you're ordering it off of Uber Eats or one of these things, you're not having the same experience and all of that. But so you got to sell service. And so that means that your people have to be happy. And the only way trickle down works is happiness, I believe. And well, maybe irritation can trickle down too, now that I say it. But we would say that it's my job to make everybody who comes in the building happy, and that includes our employees.
100%. I look back on sort of how I behaved as a chef. Like, good God, like that shit would not be okay.
And you were one of the best ones.
I was just about to say, I was like super kind and nice and loved my employees, and I just occasionally would do some things that were really inappropriate by today's standards.
I had gotten offers many times before to open a restaurant with people, and I said, and this is unfortunately not hyperbole, that I wasn't interested in being the best part of somebody else's crappy restaurant, because that's what it would be. Because most of the chefs, drunk, unfriendly, rude, whatever. But when Jason and I met, I was like, this is a person who's not going to throw a plate at me. I had a female chef throw a plate at my head, and
a guest
throw a plate at my head. I'm a nice person. I was like, what is happening? What's going on? But, yes, you were one of the absolute best.
But there's been such a sea change, and not just from Me Too movement. That was a huge push, right? That was the initial, this sort of shitty behavior is not acceptable anymore kind of moment for the restaurant business.
We need to behave like everybody else.
At least close.
Close, yes.
Right? We need to behave more like everybody else. This needs to be a job. But the younger generation who, they just don't accept the same sort of work conditions that we did.
It's amazing, right? That the values that they bring. I'm not one of the people who's going to complain about the millennials or Generation Z. I think they're doing a great job in saying what's important to them and living their values. It's awesome.
It is. I am really grateful that I'm not running a company that has 130 of them anymore.
Yeah.
Because it is challenging, but that's okay. I mean, it's good. I want that change. It's a change that needs to happen. I'm just old. I wouldn't want to have 125 ultra loyal employees that would never leave. I'm just kind of, it's nice to not have employees.
It was a lot.
Because we did care for them so much.
Yes, in the beginning I would buy every person that worked for us a birthday gift. Everyone would have a birthday cake baked by me, whether they wanted it or not. And eventually that had to stop being the norm because we would just be celebrating every day because we had so many employees at the end. And you said to me, this is ridiculous.
Can't be friends with all of them.
Can't be friends with all of them. That was a hard one for me to learn. I never mind being the boss, but I also am I'm more of a camp counselor sort of boss. I want to make sure everybody's doing good. And then we just celebrated birthdays once a month.
So, I mean, on this topic of love and maybe things that don't always love you back, I think that one of the things that's not often discussed is that, love can also be really brutal and exhausting. It's worth it. It's 100% worth it. But love's not always easy. So, loving basically a campus of 130 people is hard. It's really hard. And when you basically are living with them, I saw my management staff far more than I ever saw my wife or kids. Far more. That's tough. It doesn't mean that it's not worth it. It doesn't mean that it's not the most important value that you can have as an employer or a friend or a coworker. But wow. It can take it out of you after a while. But it's okay, right? It's okay that it takes it out of you. Because better that than to have that sucking void that not having love would create. So, when I say I don't miss it, I don't, but I'm so proud of what we did.
Yes.
So proud of what we did.
So I don't have any kids, and for me, when we'll either together or separate, be at a restaurant where some of our former employees are working, and they're so excited to see us, and they're excelling, and it's amazing,
Amazing.
And they're all over the city, and they're all over the country, some of them.
I think
And
there might not actually be any here anymore.
I thought Brian was here.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. But yeah, it's just.
No, it's incredible. We did a lot of really good work, but the biggest work that we did was work based off of compassion. So whether that was advocacy work, one of my proudest moments as a chef, I never like to brag on myself at all because I'm really insecure and it feels weird, but I was able to do a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of great accolades, a lot of great press. Probably my proudest moment as a chef, though, was the first time that one of my cooks called in panic attack and felt comfortable doing that. It wasn't some made up shit. It was like, I'm having a panic attack. I don't think I can make it in. You shouldn't make it in. We'll figure it out. We had another chef who was petrified of thunderstorms.
He was very sad.
And I had a kitchen that, when a storm happened, this cook would run down to the basement and literally cower. And everybody just kind of
Keep on going.
let
Pick
others
up
work.
yeah.
No big deal, right? That was the kind of work environment that
We were
we
also
wanted.
one of the only restaurants that did not encourage you to work sick. right? Now COVID, that's, of course, right?
Yeah.
But we would say restaurant work is like, you gotta cover your shift, you gotta do this, whatever. No, don't come to work sick. And if you're worried about that $100, we will cover it and we'll take it out of your paycheck, $10 a week, so you won't feel it, right? Because restaurant people are people too. I mean, right? You shouldn't have to say that, but so, yes, like, don't come to work sick.
Right.
People I don't want you sneezing. Personally, I don't want you sneezing on me if I'm just being selfish, but really it's about
But I also don't want to see
caring. Why shouldn't you have the same, you should be able to call in sick.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing.
And sick isn't always
No.
sneezing on people. Sometimes sick is really just not being able to do it. So really that was like probably, I think, my greatest accomplishment as a chef.
I didn't know what you were going to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was though, and especially once I put the bottle down and I sort of ended up, finally seeking recovery. That's a whole nother panel. But, it was really important to me because once I saw recovery, I was also making a lot of steps towards improving my mental health, which was at an all-time low. It was really bad. And although we always tried to run places that were based on love and compassion, I was just like, that's not enough, Like I need our restaurants and our kitchens in particular to be places where I want to go to work. And I want to go to work in a place where people give a shit about each other, where it's not bullying and threatening and belittling people, where it's like, dude, are you okay? Do you need a minute? Right? Not like, where the fuck is Timmy? Pardon my vulgarity. Right? Like, I needed it to not be like that. And I think we were successful mostly.
Think so. I would say so. There's going to be somebody who says no, right? But I think for us is that, and we were talking about this earlier, is that when we started this partnership, was that we said that our friendship and love for each other was the most important thing, that business gets shitty fast, right? That there's always going to be something that comes up, that we wanted to make sure that we remembered the reason that we did this was because we love each other and we get a kick out of each other and we're happy to see each other.
Right.
And so we tried to hire other people that got it too, and that we were happy to see, because it's a lot easier, right? If you don't have to work with your best friends, but it's a lot easier to at least work with people you like, obviously. And and restaurant hours are brutal. I mean, 80 hours a week. Because you feel bad. Everyone's in the old thing. Everyone's trying to outwork each other, right? You don't want to be the one who says you don't want to be the one who says you can't hack it. Although if I'm honest, I was always like, I'm tired. Let's go home. Let's call it. Right? We've been here since 9. No.
Even drunk I outworked everybody.
Even drunk, he would outwork me, and he would be out until 2 a.m. sometimes, and I would go home at 10. Have been there since 9, and he would beat me back in the morning and look fresher than I did, and it would just drive me crazy. The only thing that drove me crazy, I'd be like, this isn't right.
I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I still don't know how you did it. There's a magic.
Like, somebody's gotta cut the meat, and somebody has to get the ovens turned on.
Yes.
So you just do it. But, it's incredible to see the shift, and I don't even know how much time we have left.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Just a couple
Tell us to
minutes.
wind it up.
Because it's 4:30. The other thing that I think that was great about the pandemic, personally, was it was the first time that I had ever stopped working. That's not true. Between the ages of 11 and 13, it didn't work. Lazy. But
All those 12-year-old jobs that are out there for people.
I had never not worked. Never in my life had I not worked. And so I got to spend this amazing amount of time with my family, even though my wife and I were in a really shitty place because of me mostly. But that's what allowed me to realize that I didn't want to do it anymore. That's when we decided to sell our shares of Dingo, which we were founding partners of and we're not involved with anymore. And that's also been lovely and wonderful. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, I probably would still be miserable as shit in restaurants. That forced break, I was like, I can't do it anymore. I'm done.
I will say, every so often, I'll call him up and say, you know what we need to do? Here's what we're going to do. And he's like, why don't you take a minute, think about it, remember that your knees hurt and your hip and you can't stand up for whatever long, and you know, and you like to sit at home with your tiny dog, and I'm like, you're right, give me a minute, let me think it.
Yeah, I try not to say you've lost your ever-loving mind. What I try and say is,
It's implied.
This tomorrow.
Let's talk
And
about
let's see
yes.
if we still think it's a good idea tomorrow. It's never a good idea tomorrow. But it's
You never know that.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
He knows.
I know. Oh, I know. With all my heart. Because I can't do it anymore. I physically can't do it anymore, and I don't want to do it anymore. But it was a really weird thing for me. Like, and I hate to say that the pandemic was really good for me, but it was really good for me. And I don't mean that to belittle so many other people's experiences, which were far from awesome. But I'm earning better than I've ever earned. I'm doing probably more community engaged work than I've ever done. I have more time than I've ever had, all simultaneously. And you know, it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't spent my whole life in the restaurant business and working the way that we did. These things wouldn't be an option. But I am wildly grateful for that time. Wildly grateful. And I'm really grateful for you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.